When you hear North Korea, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably Kim Jong-un, right? He's been running the nation since 2011, but under his rule, men in North Korea have some pretty, let's say, creepy powers over women. We're talking about enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortions, and other unspeakable horrors. So you better stick around to the end because we're gonna spill the beans on why North Korea is considered one of the worst human rights violators, especially for women, in the world. How do men use their power to break women mentally, physically, and to some extent spiritually? These are the creepy things men have ever done to women in North Korea. Alright, let's begin with the Korean penal system. Can you believe that women were imprisoned in camps from 2009 to 2019 just for attempting to escape their own country? I mean, it's their choice where they want to live or not, for God's sake. But thanks to interviews with survivors, witnesses, and with the help of satellite images, architectural analysis, the nonprofit organization called Korea Future has unveiled a painfully detailed view of life inside North Korea's penal system. We're talking about over 1,000 cases of torture and cruel treatment, hundreds of cases of rape and sexual violence, and more than 100 instances where the right to life was just denied. The Korea penal system's goal? To keep people away from society if their actions don't perfectly align with glorifying the supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. How wrong is that? You know what? The worst creepy thing that happens in the penal system is starvation. The investigators from Korea Future and the UN say that many women prisoners in these nightmarish camps get so broken by the relentless abuse that they start to believe they deserve it. To make it even worse, some of them don't even understand the concept of human rights. It's like they're trapped in a twisted world. Now, let's delve into the details of the women who individually endured torture, rape, sexual assaults, and more. There was a former inmate who spent a little over a year in detention starting in 2015, was locked up just for complaining to authorities about her housing. She described her treatment as if she were an animal. She said, "When we raise rabbits, we keep them in enclosures with fences and give them food. And in jail, it was like we were the rabbits, kept in a cell and given food from behind bars. We were not treated as humans, but as some kind of animal. Inside these cells, they couldn't move around much, and they had to sit with their hands on their sides. They weren't even allowed to look up or talk. All they could hear was the sound of people breathing." Now, what's on the menu for their food? It was just corn mixed with rice bran, a combination usually given to animals. It's a far cry from a proper meal. That former inmate further described the never-ending hunger, saying, "How can it be enough? When you eat breakfast, you're hungry as soon as you put down your spoon. It's all grass and no nutrition, so you get hungry even though you don't feel the food inside your stomach." And what's the result? Their bodies waste away to nothing, and they end up looking like skeletons, barely holding on to life. After a little more than a year, she was finally released, but the suffering left deep scars. I guess now you understand that we're talking about some pretty dark and disturbing stuff happening in North Korea. Alright, continuing on, let's explore what the word torture means to them. You won't believe it, but one woman recalled being beaten so severely with firewood that her skin on her face tore open, her chin got dislocated, and 4 of her teeth were knocked out. It's nothing short of a nightmare. Now, according to the new report that spans from 2010 to 2019, one former detainee shared her painful story, saying that she was beaten with a stick, chair, and leather belt by officers from the security ministry. She added, "Some detainees were asked to put their heads on the bars of the cell and the guards would beat us with a club. We were like punching bags to them." Here's the thing to remember. The level of brutality we're talking about here could very well be considered torture. And under international law, torture is strictly and absolutely prohibited. No exceptions. But I guess North Korea was adopted the rule named easygoing. Kim Jong-un doesn't give a damn about what happens to their women. Alright, moving on to the next atrocities, which will cover rape, sexual assaults, and forced abortions. You won't believe this story. But before we continue, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more interesting videos. For this, consider the lives of women in the military. You'd think that being in the army might offer some protection, right? Well, not really. For women in the North Korean military, it's a whole different kind of nightmare. It's actually worse. One brave soldier spilled the beans on what it's like. She faces sexual assault, has abortions without anesthesia, and battles with malnutrition. Can you imagine that pain? Then there's another former soldier, Jennifer Kim, who shared some truly shocking details. Okay, now pay attention to this one. Female soldiers had to use wet foot wraps as makeshift sanitary pads. Can you imagine the discomfort? I mean, think about it. Some women don't even use clothes during their periods because it's uncomfortable, and this is even worse. And the punishments they faced? One of them involved dipping their hands in freezing cold water and then hanging from an iron rod that froze to their palms. When they were finally released, their flesh tore off. It's like something out of a horror movie. These women faced impossible choices. Jennifer Kim said, "If I refuse his request, I can't become a member of the Workers' Party of Korea. If I return to society without being able to attend the party, I'm perceived as a problem child and I'll be stigmatized for the rest of my life. That means you won't be able to get a good job and it will be a problem when you try to marry. What could I have chosen? In the end, I was sexually assaulted by him." No, don't shake your head under disbelief. It is the rule that's going on under Kim Jong-un. Now, let's hear from the next soldier, Lee Soo-yeon, a former soldier in the Korean People's Army. She'll give us a real-life look at what she and other women endured. First off, in the military, they made a big deal about the idea that men were in charge. It wasn't just about training. Women had to do chores like cooking and cleaning while men got a pass. Food was scarce and the training was tough. So tough that women's periods often stopped. And when they did have their periods, they had to reuse sanitary pads and wash them when men weren't around. I bet that makes them feel uneasy, doesn't it? Showering wasn't even better. Hot water was a luxury, so they had to make do with a hose. Now, get this, sometimes frogs and snakes would come out of the hose. Can you imagine taking a shower with that kind of surprise? Lee and the other women were left without even the basic things they needed to stay clean and healthy. Now, about sexual assault and rape. It was sadly all too common. While Lee herself didn't experience this, many of her friends did. She tells us the company commander would stay in his room at the unit after hours and rape the female soldiers under his command. This would happen over and over without an end. It's hard to believe that this was just a regular thing. What's even sadder is that the victims were often blackmailed into silence. You see, in North Korea, being a part of the Workers' Party is a big deal. It's a ticket to a better life, and many women join the army hoping to become party members. But senior male officials use this as a way to manipulate and harass young women. They threatened to block their party membership if they refused or tried to report the abuse. This meant that women found themselves stuck in a never-ending cycle of suffering, without a way out. If that doesn't make your skin crawl, maybe this one will. What happens when a woman in the North Korean military becomes pregnant? Instead of support, these women get the blame. So they resort to pretty desperate and dangerous measures to end the pregnancy. We're talking about stuff like strapping their stomachs with an army belt to hide the pregnancy, or even taking medication meant to get rid of worms, not babies. And believe it or not, some have even resorted to jumping off and rolling down steep hills. It's like we're reading the book on brutality, and some escapees have even stumbled upon fetuses in army toilets. This isn't just desperate. It's a heartbreaking testament to how tough life is for women in the North Korean military. But that's not all. There are thousands of cases like this. If we were to explain each one, it might take a whole year. Sexual assault and manipulation are part of everyday life for these women. They can't seek legal help or justice, and as a result, the abusers roam free unpunished. Actually, I'm giving you a platform. If you had a chance to say something to Kim Jong-un about the creepy things men have ever done to women, what would it be? Please let us know in the comments and subscribe to this channel. In the meantime, take good care of the women in your life.